um, what can families take away, like overall, now that we've covered a lot of topics, like in terms of struggling with math and defining a child's future, whether it does or doesn't? What do you think families could take away from this?
A couple things. One, I think I've often heard parents be like, oh, well, we're just not math people. Like, it's fine. We're not math people. And I want to say that, like, I don't think that's true. I don't think there's like math people and reading people. And I think dismissing it that way can be really detrimental to your child. So I think major things that I tell parents, bring math into your daily life, bring it into the real world. Um, Especially if you have a kid that's like, I hate to say like food motivated, but let's be honest, some kids are really food motivated.
I myself was
Can
that
you,
kid.
yeah, my daughter is that kid.
Yeah.
Obviously she's not old enough for this, but like, can you set the table? We have 5 people, so we need 5 plates and 5 forks and 5 spoons, and and have them count out stuff like that, where it doesn't feel like a math problem. It feels like we're getting ready for dinner. I get my food faster. Things like that can be really helpful. And then the other main thing is like, there's nothing wrong with your kid. Math is hard for a lot of people, and the school system moves at an unreasonable pace for most children because they have to, because there's a limited amount of days and time in the day and time in each class, and I get it. But if your kid isn't keeping up, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. They're not failing. They
Mhm.
simply need more time and more support. And that's where that early intervention can be so important. The other thing that I always like to remind people about early intervention is it's called early intervention for a reason. And the more you put it off, the more work it's going to take to get a child back on track. But it is not a permanent solution. Um, Putting a child in tutoring at 5 years old, putting a child in occupational therapy at 3 years old, whatever, does not mean that they're going to need tutoring all the way through college. It means that we're going to address it now, build a foundation, and then it should be able to go away. These are not permanent supports. And I think, especially when finances come into play, this can be a major fear for parents because they want to help their kid, but maybe they can't afford to pay for tutoring for the next 10 years, but they can afford to pay for it for a year. And so they're like, okay, well, if I could only pay for it for a year, I'm going to wait till they get to high school when it's more important. But the
Right.
reality is, what could have been addressed in 5 weeks is now going to take 5 months. Um,
Exactly.
and I think that's the piece that parents often miss. It's well intentioned. It's, hey, I can only make this work for a short amount of time, so I'm going to wait till it's more necessary, more important. But the reality is, you're not helping your child by putting it off. The best thing that you can do is address it.
Yeah, so just to add on to what you said, there's one thing families can take away from this entire conversation we had. It's this, and that's that struggling with math doesn't mean a child isn't capable. More often, it means learning hasn't felt clear, meaningful, or safe yet. So, a lot of kids are introduced to math as a set of rules to memorize, like we said, but when numbers don't make sense at a deeper level, it's easier for frustration and even anxiety to build, right? So, over time, that stress can it can make kids shut down before they even try, which is the worst case scenario we talked about. And so, what research and real experience both show is that when learning slows down and focuses on understanding first, something important shifts. And so, when kids are given time to see numbers, touch them, compare them, and talk through their thinking, math starts to feel less overwhelming and more manageable. And just as important, when kids feel supported instead of pressured, their confidence begins to grow. So mistakes stop feeling like failures and start feeling like a part of a process. Remember that process we were talking about? That was like a very important factor of our conversation. And so that emotional safety matters just as much as math itself. And so for families, this doesn't mean you need to push harder, add more worksheets. It often means the opposite. It means you're focusing less on speed and more on sense making. So it means noticing progress in small ways, and like a child explaining their thinking, staying calm during homework, or being willing to try again, right? So early supportive help can make a real difference, not just in math skills, but in how a child feels about learning. So if your child is struggling, take heart, and with the right support, learning can feel possible again and confidence can grow from there.